Welcome to the Top to Bottom podcast. Now, I never get to intro the podcast, so I'm going to savor every second of it. Today, we have two surprises. The first surprise being, we have a very special guest. You might know him from Sales Feed. You might know him from his famous webinar with Keenan last week. And after today, he gets to add unfortunate guest victim of the Top to Bottom podcast to the list. I present to you none other than Will Aitken.
Yeah.
It's good.
Will, my question for you today
Okay.
is, out of the two Top to Bottom podcast hosts, who is your favorite?
Okay, hang on a second. That's a trap straight off the gate. Becc, because Becc.
I
Every
didn't.
time.
Oh, she's here.
Answer,
don't
good
even
answer.
flinch.
I mean, we never really needed Keenan, but now I'm gonna really solidify that.
Keenan.
I'd say it to
rolled
Keenan if he was here.
Now, the second surprise is that today, Becc Holland, the lovely Becc Holland, will be doing a live discovery role play with Will as the buyer. It is so much of a surprise, in fact, that not even Becc knew this about this beforehand. She's learning about this in real time.
I am then. I am.
So Becc, during the challenge section of this podcast,
Okay.
you will have the 10 minutes to sell a quit smoking program to Will, who will play as the struggling smoker. So parallel to the situation we had on the famous webinar with Keenan and Will last week.
Okay.
I know you're famous for diagnostic selling and selling to the unknown. So we're going to test this theory. The thing that Will already knows is that
Health.
obvious. Yeah.
It's gotta be health.
Yeah. So that he
Okay.
wanted to quit because of his health. So you can use anything else except that.
My heart is like beating so fast right now, like in the guillotine. Okay, so health. I can't use health.
You can't use health. And here's another big kicker, right? You only have 5 minutes during the inbox section to go on mute and prepare while I ask Will some questions from the audience. And every single stat that you use needs to be real. So you have 5 minutes to do research on whatever you want.
Okay, well that is the real surprise. That's a gift, because I was like, if they don't give me some time to research, I'm gonna murder someone. I'm not real sure who yet. Could be Keenan. Sorry, Will, it could be you. I'm not really sure.
Yep. For context, I recently went back on a bad old habit of mine. I'm in the process of quitting right now. So it is a real scenario, right? So I do have real motivations. And they're not as related to health as you might think. So even though you can't use that one, you're probably saving yourself.
Okay.
Gotcha. So my question to you, Becc, is, are you ready?
I think so.
Will, are you ready for this?
Yeah. I'm a horrible role player. I'm mean. I'm not gonna make it easy for you, Becc.
That's okay. My default is Keenan.
Okay,
So
okay.
that's all I'm going to say is I'm going to say my default is.
Well, this was a role play I was doing, and he hijacked it and said, no, I'm going to ask the questions here. And then I was,
So we're doing that right off the bat?
No. So for all the people who are watching today, we will be doing this in the challenge section of our podcast. So stay tuned towards the middle of our podcast for this live role play. But for now, we're on to the first segment of this podcast, which is Email Teardown. This is the segment where we tear down emails and messages that were sent to Becc and Will. So on to the first message. This was sent to Will, and it was very long, so we put in a little document, but it says, "Hey Will, I hope this email finds you well. I saw we are both attending Sales Feed Live, Selling in a Recession with Keenan and Will Aitken, and I'm impressed with your work. While your business has a lot of potential for growth, I noticed that it doesn't receive as much traffic as its competitors. This is likely due to a lack of focus on SEO and Instagram marketing. At blank, a branding agency based in London, UK, we specialize in helping brands build recognition through various marketing solutions. After reviewing your website and Instagram account, I believe there are several opportunities for improvement, particularly in the areas of SEO and Instagram engagement. For example, I noticed that your website does not have schema markups on its pages, which can negatively impact your search engine rankings. Additionally, your Instagram account has a relatively low engagement rate compared to similar accounts in your niche. By implementing more engageable strategies such as carousels, we can help improve the growth of your account. To give you an idea of the work we do, I have included a case study of a brand we have worked with in the past. If you or someone on your team is interested in discussing how we can help optimize your website's SEO and increase your Instagram engagement to drive sales and build your brand, please let me know what your availability looks like this week. If you are not the best person to speak about this opportunity, I would be happy to speak with the appropriate individual. Oh my goodness, that was a long one, but Will,
Yeah, it's
what
the
are your
first
thoughts?
time I've read it because I just deleted it and then I went and got it out of my trash when you told me you needed a bad email.
What are your thoughts?
Long. Yeah. I mean, I can go all in, but like that first sentence obviously immediately made me stop reading because, like, hey, we attended the same event that you presented at. Like, obviously, a misuse of automation there that led to that, which then led me to believe they didn't look at my Instagram account, didn't look at my websites. Everything they said afterwards, I just didn't care about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was so blatantly automated, and even if it wasn't, it was so long that I just don't have time to read that. Like, we just took up a whole 2 minutes of this podcast trying to get that out there.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
1000%. Becc, what do you think? I know you have some edits for this.
Yeah, so my first one, that was a glaring issue of you're like, we both attended it. And I'm like, well, he was in it.
I hope so.
He was in it. So that is definitely a low-hanging fruit. Another one is, I hope this email finds you well. So I see too many pattern words here. And if you hit the pattern of a sales email, to Will's point, like you're going to log out of the email. So hope this email finds you well. Just checking in, just circling back, just bubbling this to the top of your inbox. Happy Monday. Hope you and your kids are safe during these uncertain times. Looking forward to it. Quick chat, brief intro, 15 minutes. I'd love to. SEO, end-to-end, optimization, ROI. We help. Here's our case studies. We help blank do any of that. You're dead. You're dead.
You know all the buzzwords.
I am the buzzwords, Will.
Well, to your point, it's like there's a spam filter that stops you getting into people's inboxes if you are sending spam. There's a mental one as well, and all of those words trigger that mental spam filter. So people just
I love that.
away.
I love that mental spam. Because you hit any of that, and I'm like, salesperson, so now I know how to categorize this. So I'm like, it's out. Now I will say the one thing I think they did well was to your point, they mentioned a lot of things that made me believe that they did homework. Like they mentioned, like this middle paragraph. I noticed your website doesn't have schema markups. Additionally, your Instagram account has a relatively low engagement rate and especially this competitive one. I noticed it doesn't receive as much traffic as competitors. So like, first of all, Brendan, don't blow it in the intro by saying, I noticed you attended when he was on it. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, but if taking that line aside, if they would put some detail behind it, I noticed these three, I don't notice you don't have any schemas, but like what the engagement rate is, what competitors are you talking about? What is their engagement? And then I believe, like, cause the competitive thing, I'm like, what are you going to say, Will?
Well, if they had listed two competitors, then I would have actually like really, I would have forgiven everything else. I would have been like, yeah, you're right. That would have made me feel a little bit insecure maybe. But the fact they didn't, like, I feel like this is a really, really, they're trying really hard to make an automated message look not automated. To me, that's what that reads as.
So I'm guessing, I'm like, so I just add some stats, but from a high level approach, I would say it's valuable. Just add in the statistics. That's what you'll get if you, I know. Well, welcome to Top to Bottom.
It's okay. Welcome to Top to Bottom.
The stakes were just raised. All right.
Yeah. Are you okay? Are you okay?
I'm okay. It didn't come through too loud on the.
Do you want a trauma bond later? Because
maybe. I think so. I think we need.
You went through a webinar with Keenan. I live in a webinar with Keenan.
Yeah, we'll go have a cigarette. All right, that sounds good.
I'm going to start smoking. I'm going to sell you out of it, but I'll subsume the habit.
Well, with that, we are on to our next segment of the podcast, which is Sales Mythology. This is the segment where we demystify common myths in the sales industry. So the first sales myth, we're going to start with you, Will,
Okay.
is pains and problems are the same thing,
Okay.
and impact and outcomes are the same thing. What are your thoughts?
Okay. So this is something that I've seen both Becc and Keenan go on hard about problems not being pains. I don't know if it's like a vocabulary thing, but like I've always kind of just used the words interchangeably, right? So I know that Becc wouldn't agree with that, but to me, I'm like, okay, a problem, a challenge, a pain, they all kind of mean the same thing to me. But maybe the way that I've learned recently is that a pain is more symptomatic or catered to the individual, whereas a problem is more overarching.
Mhm.
But yeah, they're all negative words to describe something that's going wrong in my mind. Now, an impact and outcome are definitely different. The impact, I would say, is more related to the problem. Like what is the impact of the problem that they're having? What's that doing to them? What's the emotional, monetary impact that's having on their life? The outcome would be more so what's going to happen if that gets solved. What's the outcome of solving that impact of that problem? You're talking about future state there in my mind.
What about you, Becc? What do you think about this?
Yeah, to Will's point, they are in the market used. Will's like, he's like, they are used interchangeably. And to me, the difference between a pain and a problem is pain's going to be any negative experience, and to your point, symptomatic. And a problem is going to be anything you solve or solve for. So all pains aren't problems, meaning all things that are annoying, I'm not going to solve for. There's a million annoying things that happen during my day that I don't actually take the time. And all problems, I think to the bigger impact, all problems aren't painful yet. So a lot of times you're trying to prevent a future pain from happening. It's like a good example being I was, trying to run a marathon. So I bought a new iPhone so I could hold charge in the marathon and not lose my T-Swift jams in the middle of the marathon. So there was no pain in the present. There was no negative experience yet. And so I think the thing that people miss in that is they think if I remind someone of their pain or I talk about their pain, I'm like, the reality is if the pain was egregious enough or the impact was big enough, they would have already tried to make a move to solve for it. So if they haven't, you're trying to outbound based on it, you're hoping that you run into them in like this small window frame where they're about to do something about it, but they just haven't yet. And you're like right there, right time, blah, blah. But I think that the difference is I'm not going to necessarily solve for a pain just because it's a pain. And I think reminding those buyers that pain isn't going to make them want to solve for it. You have to uncover, discover, present new information that all of a sudden mobilizes them to say, okay, this pain, this impact, etc., is bigger than I originally thought. So now, whereas before I wasn't going to do something about it, now I'm going to do something about it. I know I didn't cover impact and outcome, but how are we on time then?
Let's go. We have two more, so you have the choice to either go on impact or outcome, or we can move on to the next one.
I'll give 30 seconds on impact and outcome. To me, the difference is impact is just going to be basically the interaction, two forcible objects, like what's going to happen to the person if they don't solve the problem. It could be positive, it could be negative, could be either. Typically, people are going to solve for the negative. But an outcome to me is the thing that they want to solve to avoid the impact or inherit the impact. So like if I have a threat in mind, for instance, then, or if I have the marathon in mind, the impact that I'm worried about is like, okay, I lose charge in the middle of the marathon. I can't listen to Taylor Swift. I have to walk off the track. And the impact to me, true story, was I'm like, I feel like a fake for the rest of my life. That I couldn't run that marathon and that I'm not the kind of person that could do that. But the outcome that I solved for in that moment was I need to buy the phone so that my future state is rendered in a way to where that impact doesn't happen. So to me, the difference is the outcome is the way that you're solving to prevent or to inherit the impact. So we're in definitionville, so I'm going to be quiet so Will doesn't fall asleep on his first podcast.
Well, we're on to
He fakes it. He fake falls asleep. And that's my warning that I have about a minute and a half.
well, the second sales myth,
Mhm.
Becc, just is solution-centric triggers is how I can influence the sale. Would you like to start on this one, Becc, or should I post it up to Will?
Your choice.
Come on, let's hear it. Let's hear it. I want to hear your take.
So to me, there's two types of triggers that will make someone solve for something. It's either a solution-centric trigger, meaning a trigger about your product, the amount of time, the amount of money, so you could decrease your pricing. And that's where reps live, breathe, eat, and die. You know, how easy it is to solve using your solution, how much time the solution's available. And so reps think in their head, the only way to mobilize this person is to affect one of those. To me, the really low-hanging fruit is the diagnostic triggers of how can I identify, to Min's point on my guillotine challenge in like 20 minutes that I'm still terrified about, is can you find a problem that they didn't know about, a root cause that they didn't know about that will also be solved with a solution, and a future impact they didn't know about, a current impact that they didn't know about, current event trigger that makes a problem worth solving, future event trigger that makes a problem worth solving for. And if you add those into, like I'm hoping that in the challenge that Will came in for health, right? So instead of lowering the cost of my solution, I'm going to try to find and diagnose something that he doesn't know that's going to happen to him in addition to that one, and that will mobilize him to buy. He was about buying it before, but once you tack all of those ends, he's like, okay, I'm going to buckle and I'm never going to touch a cigarette again. I'm going to pass it to Becc and she's going to smoke it because there's stress from Keenan. So, Will, I'm going to pass to you.
Will, what do you think? Should I repeat the sales myth?
No, I think I got it. Solution triggers influence the sale. I think they do later, but to Beck's point, only if it's related to a root cause that's affecting them and causing them problems, right? So if there isn't one of those, then there's no point, really. It won't make the difference. So it probably will down the road when you get to the point of solving solutions. But if there isn't that problem in the first place, if it's not a big problem and there is no root cause that you can help them solve, then it doesn't matter. So no, it's not the main influence, but it probably will influence later on once you've got them to admit that root cause, that problem, and acknowledge it.
Totally. Or know it, because I'm like, for their sake, because I'm like, they don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know. So it's like, how do I increase the size of the problem? Because what they understood was it was this big, but really the problem was this big. They just didn't realize it. So I'm like, that's the bucket that I'm in constantly is like and I'm like, on a side note, it should be our North Star, but to help them, like there's all this information that they didn't know that would hurt them, that like, once they know that, if they still say, no, then okay, well, at least they know now.
Yeah.
But anyhow.
Or maybe even they realize the size of the problem, but it's like they think it's being caused by something else when the reality is it's like this other thing, right?
Totally.
Like, that happens all the time in sales as well. People come in with these ideas like, yeah, it's taking too long because I'm just going to use. I'm not as good as stories and analogies as you are, Becc. That's the thing here. Should have come ready with something here. But let's say they're sending documents, right? Like, it's taking too long. It's too manual. Or maybe it's not too manual, but the real root cause is that they have to go and start from fresh every time, right? So it's not actually the physical typing that's taking so long. It's actually going ahead and finding the document to begin. If they had templates in place, then they might actually be able to create that quicker, right? So that's like a different root cause. It's causing the same problem that might be a big problem, but if they try and solve like, oh, I want them to type less, well, they're going to be end up solving the wrong root cause and therefore could end up investing in the wrong solution. That's going to cost them a bunch of money. A year later down, they're going to churn and come back.
Totally. And I hear so many people be like, why do I feel salesy? I'm like, because you are, Brendan. I'm like, there's no freaking mystery here. Like, you are. I'm like, when you ask a question and they're answering, are you busy thinking of your next question? He's like, and I'm like, then how are you not leading them somewhere? Anywho, I digress. I know we have a third one.
Oh yeah, quick fire third one. We only have 30 seconds, but all buyer intent is created equally. Becc, why don't you start us off on this one?
Oh gosh. Okay, I got 15 seconds. In my head, there's five types of buyer intent. Inbound demo request. They are looking at reviews, PLG, free trial, freemium, blah, blah. Downloaded some marketing content, and then dark funnel. They're searching on the web. Those are not created equally. Inbound is very different from downloading marketing content. All I'm going to say. Will?
Yeah, I mean,
Don't get fished, Will. Don't get fished.
Yeah, I would just say, okay, there you go. All right. Well, that was a trap.
Okay,
That was a complete trap.
There is a lagging indicator that like Keenan's always like, she's trying to trap me. She like put out a diagnostic.
Well, I can understand how he feels. I can empathize with Keenan because I definitely got thrown under the bus.
I'm like, but Will, here's the
the
thing. You are lovely. Why would I do that to you? Now, Keenan,
you don't know me well enough if you think that.
Unrepentantly will admit to it right now. And if he watches this, I'm not in any way, shape, or form sorry. I'll lead him down that path, but you wouldn't do that. So I'm not doing that in the moment, Keenan.
I know how you feel.
Well, with that, we are on to the next segment of our podcast, which is Take It or Leave It. This is the segment where I introduce common sales tactics, and Will and Becc will let us know whether they will take it or leave it. The first one today is selling to negative problems only. Will, take it or leave it?
I can honestly take it, leave it, right? I remember this is quick fire, isn't it? Take it.
Take it. Why so? Why so?
Okay, so you want me to? Okay, I believe that people are much more motivated if I could. Not to say that people won't buy because of a potential gain, but generally people I find are much more scared of running away from something bad happening to them than trying to realize a gain. A lot of gain is skeptical. A lot of gain is salespeople like manipulating the numbers, saying you could improve your profits by 50%. To me, a much more impactful way of putting that is like, oh, you could live 5 years longer. Well, do you know what's more motivating than living 5 years longer? Not dying 5 years sooner. Mm-hmm. So I feel like any gain can be positioned in a loss way that will motivate the buyer in a different direction. Mm-hmm. The reason the gain isn't happening is because of a problem stopping them from getting to that. I want to focus on the negatives. I just feel like that motivates people more.
Mm-hmm. Got you, Becc. What do you think? Take it or leave it?
By the way, Will, you can do a TVIT. Keenan's not here, so he's lost relinquished rights for quite a while. So you can do a TVIT. It's my personal favorite. Okay. So mine, I would say if it's selling to negative problems only, I'm going to be a leave it. But I think to Will's point, the majority of the time, it's going to be a negative problem. There are a few cases of positive problems, like an opportunity, and I'm going to say that they're past metric, but they're going to double down. There's always that one chump on a game show that's like, you can double your $15,000 by one question, you'll wipe it out. There's always one Brendan, and he's like, let's do it. And then he gets the answers wrong, and it's underneath the table. So I do think there are cases of it. So I'm going to leave it if it's strictly, but by and large, yes, I believe it's negative problems that people are looking to solve.
Got you. The second take it or leave it for today is asking questions to get my buyer to think a certain way. Becc, take it or leave it?
Hard freaking leave it. That's going to surprise people. But from my view, say it in quip and then I'll pass to Will. A doctor doesn't ask questions to get the patient to think in a certain way.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
I find anytime sales tactics or teachings sound manipulative, that they're probably wrong. And to Beck's point, like, I'm not trying to manipulate someone into having a problem. I'm trying to get them to realize what's true based on facts, based on reality. Sorry, Amazon's going on in the background here, but hey, yeah, I think like getting my buyer to think a certain way just sounds really salesy and manipulative. So
it's just like, and that's why people they struggle selling, because they're like, how do I get my buyer? I'm like, Brendan, just diagnose. It's way faster. It's way faster, way easier. And then to your point, like they're already on high alert. You're a salesperson. Mm-hmm. So like the more manipulative, and they know when you're like,
and they can read it. Yeah.
What's the impact to you, Will, if you continue smoking? And you're like, I don't freaking know. Like, and you shut down, and you should. So I'm like, we've got to get out of manipulation game, making someone feel heard, being kind, personal, having empathy. And I'm like, to what? To get them to open up so you can close them?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
To what? To what? And I'm like, now, if your goal is to diagnose, do doctors have bedside manner? Yes. But if your goal isn't to diagnose, you're like, what question? If you're asking me the question of after I get them to open up, what question do I ask then? Then I'm like, you cannot ask that first question then. Like, because your goal was never to diagnose. But anyway, Brendan getting some heat.
I'm assuming you already explained your answer. I'm assuming you're a leave it, Will.
Yeah.
100%. Okay, so the last take it or leave it for today is telling your buyers, let me know how I could be of help to you. Take it or leave it, Will.
Leave it. Can you imagine to Beck's analogy, a doctor being like, let me know how I can help you? I'm like, no, I came here for you to tell me what's wrong with me and how I can be helped, all right? Like, I'd be like, what do you mean? What? Yeah, I think this is like lazy selling. Let me know how I can be helpful. No, you tell them how you can be helpful to them, or if you can't, then tell them that you're not. Like, that you just leave it, right? So leave it.
What about you, Becc? Take it or leave it.
I'm gonna leave it too. It's a command. It'll flip them into child ego state and they'll rebel.
Yeah.
But on a side note, to Will's point, brilliant point, I'm like, come on, guys, just ask yourself, does a doctor do it? Does a doctor story tell?
No, you got to do the WWE.
Do they?
What would a doctor do? WWD.
Yeah, would a doctor do it? Oh. Would a doctor story tell? I mean, would they, guys? Would they story tell? Hey, I helped this patient and anywho, I'm past the horn. It's now stats time. I'm going to go into my book dungeon now.
Yes. So during this next segment, which I will introduce, Becc, feel free to go on mute, do your research, whatever you can, just let you know that when you hear the siren the next time, that it's game time. You ready?
Game time. I'm terrified. I'll see y'all in 5 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. Well, hey, in the meantime, our next segment of this podcast is
the inbox.
Okay, let me switch it out so Becc can be on the bottom for this segment. But this is the segment where Will answer questions from our audience. And for that, we have the support of our trusty mailbox. And the mailbox is a paid actor. Okay, the first question is from Catherine Burns from Salt Lake City, Utah. She asks, I've been in the sales industry for over 20 years, and I've seen my outbound email open rates diminish from over 70% back in the early 2000s to under 20% currently. Does this mark the end of emails as a worthwhile outbounding strategy? Well, what do you think?
Bloody hope not, because the company I work for is all about outbound emails. I think what the experience there is a symptom of all the other things that are going on. Especially over the past 3 years, these big automation sales engagement platforms have enabled reps to send emails like marketers, like blasting. And that's had two major effects. Number one, deliverability is at an all-time low. Your domain reputation could be in the trash. And if your open rate is going down, then often that is a direct sign that your emails might be in spam. So at that point, I would go back and actually look at what might be causing that, research what gets emails into spam. It might be your domain reputation. If you've been sending too many emails, then that can go down. Gmail and Outlook are getting stricter on these things. You could be using words that trigger spam filters like save, opportunity, income, anything like that. Sounds like a marketing email. So cut all that stuff. But a few other things as well. But also people are getting more emails, right? So there's the real spam filter. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, the mental spam filter. You need to do a little bit more these days. Your emails need to be shorter than ever. They need to have really short subject lines that read like an actual email rather than a marketing or sales email. Just basically try and avoid any kind of sounding like a marketing email. And we all know what they look like. They're like double the size of your income in just 3 weeks, right? Cut it. So yeah, I'd be really diagnosing. But if open rate is the main metric that's been going down, then there's probably two things causing it. Number one, your email subject lines aren't doing the job, or you end up in spam, in which case I would look into spam because that's a topic that we could spend an hour talking about.
God, okay, we're on to our next audience submission, and this one is from Aaron Garza from San Antonio, Texas. I think this would you're going to be particularly apt at answering this one.
Let's go.
As the future of sales moves completely over to virtual sales cycles, AI tools, and outbound automation, how will that affect the human aspect of sales? And is there any place for relationship selling anymore?
Yeah, to the same tune that I was just strumming. Automation is stupid in a lot of places. It can be helpful when used the right way, but for the most part, it's just abused by sales reps as a way to do the job without doing the work. How can you say that you are connecting at a human level if you're using any form of automation while reaching out to people? It just doesn't work that way. There are certain cases where you could, let's say, reach out to 5 people, one account, with using automation, speed that along a little bit. But even then, all of that, all the automation, all the AI is actually, in my mind, an opportunity for folks to actually really do what selling is, which is being human, standing out, being unique. So look at what those things look like and then just do the complete opposite of them. Stop with the, hey, I saw that you're a title at company. We work with lots of companies in the industry, right? Like, get rid of that and instead flip the script entirely and just focus on, I noticed this thing about you. I thought that might mean you might be facing this challenge. These companies are doing this, solve that, but I'm curious, is that something you've realized yet? Or is that something that you're concerned about? Or how are you avoiding that? And just keep it super simple and short. But yeah, be you as well in all of that. Like, I'm a big fan of being funny in emails because, believe it or not, AI is not funny. Tell ChatGPT to write you a joke right now and you might get a snicker out of one of the 5 jokes it gives you.
100%. So let me ask you this: for those who are, evangelizing ChatGPT as the game changer of the sales industry, what response would you give to them?
I mean, it's only as good as the inputs, so there is definitely some ways to use it better than others. The platform I sell is based on ChatGPT, but it's not designed to replace sales rep. If you're that easily replaced by AI, then you're not doing a very good job at your job. You're not doing a very good. If you're that easily replaced by a robot, then you're not bringing enough of yourself to the role, enough intelligence, enough smart, enough empathy, enough of the things that make us human. So use AI to make yourself better. Use ChatGPT as a personal assistant. Use tools like the one I sell to help you write better emails, but don't get them to replace you, because then your job security is probably at risk anyway. I'm going to stop that time.
100%. Becc. Will, thank you for answering our questions today. But Becc, are you off of mute now?
Yeah, I blacked out. Putting together my. That was short.
So this next scene, I'm going to just put y'all two on the screen.
Okay, so just so I get the rules straight. So I can't hit on health.
All stats have to be real.
All stats have to be real. And that's it.
Yes. And you know the case, right?
Smoking, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, if it's not smoking, I am hosed. That's all I did research on. Well, it's not smoking.
Okay, well, hey, it's a little bit echoey, so I'm gonna mute Becc just quickly. But hey, we're on to our surprise live role play with the lovely Becc Holland and the lovely Will Aitken, and we're gonna start it with this segment, which is the challenge.
Okay. So thanks for meeting with me today. Well,
you're welcome.
I am going to ask you 3 sections of questions, if you wouldn't mind giving me the answers, and then we can go into afterwards potentially what a step forward would be if you wanted to take one. That sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Okay. So first off, does your you mentioned you were married? Does your wife smoke?
No.
Okay. Does she ever say anything about you smoking?
Yes. In the past, it's been part of the reason I quit in the first place was because it was she didn't like it. We had to kill in the way. So.
What does she typically say she doesn't like about it?
A few things. She's never been a smoker herself, so she doesn't really get it. She doesn't like the fact that I'm compromising my own health. She doesn't like the way I smell.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how often would you say that she comments on it per week?
Anytime I've had a cigarette and we spend time afterwards without me being able to wash my hands and chew some gum, that might be a point where she'd point out, say, oh, did you have a cigarette? And sometimes it's just that. Sometimes it's that with a little bit more attitude.
More push. Okay, so if you had to guess, how many times per week would you say that she makes some type of comment?
10.
10. Okay. Has it ever? You kind of mentioned a little bit. Has it ever resulted in a fight directly from it?
Yeah, I would say so. Typically, more so from when I've tried to hide it. rather than being forthcoming with the fact that I'd
Okay.
cracked on it.
Okay. And outside, if you put smoking aside, can you hear that siren, by the way?
I can, like, yeah, I was worried our section was over again.
Put smoking aside. Do you have any fights outside of that about anything else?
Not really, not that many, no.
Okay. Has she ever tried to help you stop?
No, I own that part.
Okay, you own it. So you're buying all the gum, you're buying everything to try to stop.
Correct.
When did you first meet, out of curiosity?
2016.
Okay, I'm trying to do quick math. And were you smoking whenever you first met?
Yes.
Okay, you were. Okay, we're gonna transition. Second section. Do you have kids?
I do have two.
Okay. Any plans to have more?
No.
Okay. And out of you and your wife, are you a single wage earning family? Is it just you, or just you or two?
Right now it's just me, and she's on parental leave.
Okay. And post taxes, mortgage, food stuff, ballpark, what percentage would you say is disposable income?
50%.
50%? Well, I think I'm going to marry you.
I'm a cheapskate, but I do well for myself.
Oh my gosh, hold on. My TV just went on. Hold on. Pause the
Everything
time.
is going on. Oh.
Becc,
Okay.
I can't pause the timer, but I can give you some extra time once it goes down to 0. So please continue.
Do you and your wife go to college?
We did, yeah. But
Okay. Do you plan on encouraging your kids to go to college?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Do you currently have a savings plan in place to help support them to go?
Yeah, I do.
You do. How much do you ballpark contribute per month? Sorry.
That's all right. 500 each.
500 each. Okay. How many cigarettes do you smoke per day?
10.
10. How many smoking bouts have you had in the past? Because I know that you mentioned you quit.
Yeah, so I quit for the past 3 years before my son was born, and I recently started again because things got a little bit stressful with the newest addition to the family. So that's I went back on a nasty habit basically.
Okay, and it was caused by what you think is stress just from adding an extra baby.
Yeah, she had some health issues, and we were in and out of hospital, and I justified it to myself that this would be the time that I was allowed to have a cigarette, which that turned into 2, which turned into 3, which turned into 10.
Okay. Do you smoke ever inside your house, inside your car?
No.
Okay. And where do you put the butts?
As you can see, I'm in a very dark basement right now. The basement has a second entrance, which kind of goes under the house. So there's a drain down there.
Okay.
In there.
You put them in the drain in the house.
It's like a gutter drain, you know. So it flows out of our garden.
Okay. And last section, your kids. You mentioned you have 2. How old are they?
One's 3 and one's 3 months.
3 and 3 months. Okay. And your father and your mother, did either one of them smoke?
They both did. They both quit. My mum went back to it recently.
Okay. How long did they smoke? When did they quit? Can you walk me kind of through that?
Probably like my entire life up until maybe 10 years ago. And then mum probably started again 3 years back. But my dad's off.
Okay.
And they're probably smoking 20 a day each, like people who were born in the 60s do.
When your mom quit, why did she quit? Did she give a reason?
I couldn't tell you. I never asked.
Okay.
I think she started vaping or something like that, and her husband did it as well, so it's probably something between them.
Okay. And as far as you, when was your first cigarette? How old were you?
Probably like 12.
Okay. And can you walk me through kind of the situation, like how it happened?
Yeah, UK's a little bit different in terms of culture. So I was getting razzle dazzled on the cans of lager from that age onwards. So you go to these parties. Sometimes there's older kids, sometimes there's not. Sometimes someone snatches a pack of their parents' cigarettes, brings them along, and you think you're cool when you're doing it. And then when I was at school, just kind of a bit of a way to rebel. I used to go behind the bike sheds and do it to feel, I don't know, like I was cool, I guess.
You are cool.
I know, but not because of that.
It's true. So you started at 12 and then you just continued on through.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was like a real smoker until I started going to university when I was 18. And then once I had that freedom, because I was trying to hide it from my parents, once I had that freedom of living alone, I and going drinking a lot more and hanging around other people who smoked, I then took it up as a real habit.
Okay. And you mentioned kind of hiding it from them. When did they first find out?
Probably when just after I graduated. I was just like, you know what, I'm 21. Why am I being like this? And my stepbrother was smoking around them as well. So I just didn't see the point of fighting
anymore. And when they found out, I'm imagining you just started smoking in front of them. When you found out, did they have a reaction? What was the reaction?
They knew. I'm not very good at lying or hiding things. So.
Okay. And did they light up with you, or?
They were. Mum would have already been smoking herself, right? So my dad would have stopped by that point. So I never really rubbed it in their faces that much. So yeah.
Okay. But there was never any condonement to stop.
No, I mean, obviously there's that general pressure, but like my dad was here recently, and I have actually technically, I'm giving up right now. And he said, if you're going to smoke, then like I bought this carton of cigarettes for your sister at the airport because it's much cheaper to buy them there, right? Why don't you just take one of these? And I said, no, thank you. So he said, I'd rather you not smoke, but if you're going to smoke, then I'd rather you not spend what $25 a packet is right now.
Okay. Two more or three more questions. Never mind. That's all my questions. So I have some stuff to tell you. You want good news or bad news first?
I'll take the bad news first.
Bad news first. So I'll start with bad news. We'll do two sections of it. So the bad news is, we'll start with kind of the relationship and then we'll get to the kids. So the bad news is that 53% of smokers have suggested or documented that they went through divorce, citing smoking as the main reason. And it is known as the number one cause for divorce is going to be lifestyle, no horn men, lifestyle, or chores or lifestyle choices. So 53% likelihood that it could result in some type of divorce just because of, the quote unquote broken trust that's listed here. But a 78% likelihood that it's going to negatively impact the marriage to some degree. So the good news in all of that is you're early on. You just started smoking again from what I understand. So if you were to stop now, none of those impacts will become true. Your marriage will stay as is, will stay intact, but if you were to continue, then it's likely that it would at minimum impact the marriage to a negative degree. As far as the kids, I'll start with the good news. So the good news is your kids are only 3 and 3 months. So they don't start to form cognitive memories until they're 5 to 7. So the great news is if you were to quit today, they would have no memory of it. They would never remember you as a smoker. Memory being defined as it can be predicated on they either smell it, hear someone reference to it, they see you smoking, or they find a butt. So they would have no memory that you were a smoker. My heart is pounding. The bad news is if you are still smoking by the time your eldest is 5 and they do commit to memory that you are a smoker, they're 4 times more likely to become a smoker themselves. And it will mirror, kind of like you talked about to the stepkids, the likelihood onto the younger children. So by the time they hit 5, 4 times more likely to become a smoker themselves. The number one cause of someone becoming a smoker in high school years is that they, kind of like you mentioned, they have a parent who does it. They'll have their first cigarette at 11. They'll become physically addicted by 14. And out of all the kids that start smoking in high school, 50% of them will die from it. So,
I was wondering where you're going with that line of questioning there as well, but wow.
So how do you want to move forward? Do you want to go into options, or where do you want to go from here?
Let's take a look at some options, shall we?
Men, is that the horn?
Yes. Wow, wow, wee, wow. Okay, so that was a crazy live role play. Do y'all have any thoughts post?
I blacked out. Will, I'm going to transition to you.
Yeah, I mean, to Beck's point earlier, helped me realize problems and root causes that I didn't actually think about before. So I was wondering why you were asking about my parents and everything. It seemed like a completely different line of questioning to the one that we started on with my wife. But I hadn't thought about the impact that it could have on the kids, seeing them smoking. The reason I probably smoke is I started smoking was because I was so normalized by the idea of it because I was around my parents, right? So I hadn't even thought about that. The first point about my wife is exactly where Keenan went. And that's actually my real reason for wanting to quit, because I feel guilty more than anything. I didn't tell Keenan that. He just got there by himself.
Mm-hmm.
So you've helped me realize a different aspect of it. So feel good that I haven't had a cigarette in 3 days. That's what's
so good for you. Yeah. Let's all give a clap.
We didn't need this anyway.
I'm like,
I'm not chewing the gum right now because this mic's really sensitive.
I'm so invested in this point. So 2 things that stood out to me was, or 2 things I would warn people against is I had a second quote unquote angle planned. And that angle was, if you weren't saving for their college funds yet.
Yeah. See, and that's good because I don't have any money concerns. That sounds so arrogant, but like the cost of smoking is like the least of my worries when it comes to it, right? And I know you could probably add it up, like, oh, if you do 10 a day, it's pack every 2 days. I've done that math myself, and I just don't care. Yeah. But the other things we spoke about, I do.
Totally. So when you said 50% disposable income, I'm like, well, he can hit his mortgage, he can hit his rent, he's got disposable income. So that nailed out the second problem in my head. And the third problem I was going to go after was college funds, And so I'm like, okay, if he has less than a 10% disposable income and he's not saving for college now, I pulled up a ton of stats of, I actually had the most stats around this was average loan is $34K, 60.5 undergraduates say they have student loans, 21 years to pay them off. 85% will have difficulty buying a house because of student loans. 60% won't actually be able to buy one at all. 18% won't be able to buy necessities in their 20s and 30s because of student loans. But the point behind this is Will answered that he was saving for the college fund, and most reps would keep going. And I'm like, he doesn't have the problem. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to move on. So that's the first piece in my head. But the second piece I want to mention, and this is really, I know we're in the rant section, and then Will, you can give your rant. But when I asked about his kids, and he said they're 3 and 3 months, I've seen this technique pop up where people are like, well, what are their names? And tell me about them. And they go into this bill where they're trying to get, yeah. And I'm like, it's manipulative, man.
Most people don't care.
Right.
I'm actually enjoying the time I'm spending down here away from them right now. They're a handful, okay? So,
well, I thought you meant they don't care what their names are.
Let's talk about sales for now. But yeah, no, I'm totally with you on that. The classic corny, oh, so how old are your kids? Like back in the day when you had a Rolodex, you could keep a note and that actually matters to people. But these days it comes across really insincere, especially in virtual selling, I find. I find it can be that manipulation. How's Archie and Emmy today?
Totally.
I'll be like, they're good. Can we get to it?
And the whole goal is, and I get it, like people Now you even see what TV I watch. This is so disgusting. People want to. I do not watch The Bachelor. For anyone watching, I certainly don't watch The Bachelor.
Cap.
Okay, Becc.
Point being, I'm like, when you ask for the name, if there's no use for that question, what am I going to do with that information? Nothing other than try to make Will, quote unquote, like me, which is clearly a lost cause. So I'm like, just stop asking the rapport building questions where you're like, how's your day? Blah, 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 blah. Just cut into the meat. So I'm like, hey, these are the 4 impacts that I think he might not be aware of. So it makes sense, about the smelling thing. But I was like, the 2 in the middle, point being, if they don't have the problem, ethically, you have to move on. And stop, in my head, I'm like, I'm going to try and avoid any kind of question. Like if I had said, Will, what's your kid's names? I think he would have shut down at that point.
I've had that happen to me while being part of the buying process before, and I'm like, can we just get to it? Like, because when you're doing 4 demos from 4 different vendors, I know this is different inbound context, right? Mm-hmm. But like, that's not what we're here for, Mm-hmm. I'm a fan of Star Wars. Use that if you have to use something to make it quite obvious.
So that's it. Men, are we doing a rant today?
Yes, we are doing a rant today. We're going to start with Will. For all of our new viewers, this section is where Becc and Will give us their closing thoughts. Will, what is your rant for today?
I feel like I've already done this rant earlier on, but it's like this whole lazy selling drives me insane. Like this whole AI thing, where everyone's like, AI is going to change sales. It will if you're shit at sales. I promise you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'll probably be replaced. All right, you don't have much job security if that's the case. Right, if you're doing the bare minimum, if all you're doing is sending out blast emails that are not even slightly thoughtful, personalized, are going to be relevant to the person reading them, that don't highlight a problem, then yes, AI is going to come in and kick your ass. If you're showing up to calls and reading the same 10 questions to your prospects and pissing them off, yes, AI is going to kick your ass. The buyer's going to want to self-serve because you're so annoying. Mm-hmm. So like, anything that makes your life easier, you shouldn't be. That's just in some cases trying to avoid doing the hard work, and doing the hard work is what separates us in sales. Sometimes it's what makes us memorable, what makes us unique. It's what's like what you bring to it. To the point, I once made a post and Keenan didn't like it very much, but it basically said there's more than one way to be good at sales. And I didn't mean like there's more than one way to be good at sales without gap selling.
Shame. Well, you just pinged me before you made these posts.
Sorry, what was that?
I said, never mind. Keep going.
Anyway, because I look up to Keenan, right? But the point is, what I wasn't trying to say is, hang on, this is cutting out a little bit. What I wasn't trying to say is, there's more than one way. You don't have to do gap selling to be good at sales. What I'm saying is, if Becc and I asked the exact same questions in the exact same order and did the exact same things in the call, it would not generate the same 2 outcomes, because Becc and I are different people, and how we show up to the conversations is different. So that's what I meant. There's more than one way to show up, and who you are, because selling is so human in nature, is going to make an effect on it. But if you're not bringing yourself to the role, then yes, AI and automation and layoffs are more likely to affect you. And that's all I'll say. So don't be lazy. Do the work, because it's worth it, and it stands out in a field of mediocrity. The bar is low. Just do a little bit more work to jump over it, and you'll stand out, and you will overperform.
A great rant.
Is that a good rant? Yeah.
Great rant.
Okay, cool.
It was a polite rant. Like Keenan would be like, "Come on, man."
Do you want me to say the F word a couple of times?
Please. Like my system doesn't know how to take it. Like you got to say something that makes me relatively uncomfortable. Otherwise, we can't have podcast, guys.
Yeah, like anyway, if robots can do your job, then you're nothing more than that robot.
Well, thank you so much, Will, for coming on the podcast, and thank you for opening up about all that information. I know that was
now people know I have money. I'm going to be helping so many sales reps.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, low key, can you send over some cash? I've already leaked all of it out of Moneybags Keenan, so now I'm going to move on to you.
Anyone who's selling financial advice, investment stuff, that's probably a buying trigger of some sort.
Well, thank you very, very much for joining us today. It was really, really nice to get to know you and finally meet you. So absolutely, everyone who has not seen Will. Go check him out. Add him on LinkedIn. All his stuff. It's incredible. Great vibe. Insightful stuff. Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Will. This is the Top to Bottom podcast. Thank y'all for watching.
See you next week.